Welcome to our fireside chat with Greg Valliere, where we're going to discuss the insights and perspectives on geopolitics. I'm Michael Carnacchia, Senior Portfolio Manager, Senior Wealth Advisor, and Financial Planner. And with me is John Kellaway, Senior Wealth Advisor from 6 Point Wealth Management, IA Private Wealth. This is a follow-on discussion that we had with Greg back in October of 2024, prior to the US election. And with news changing so rapidly these days, we thought it would be good to check in with Greg and get his thoughts on the current geopolitical environment. Welcome back, Greg.
Great to be with you.
As we sit here recording on the morning of Monday, June the 23rd, 2025, Greg, is there anything interesting happening in the world today that you'd like to talk to us about?
No, nothing's going on. Oh my God. It's just when you think it can't get any crazier, it does. And it's been a very interesting stretch for Donald Trump. He has his detractors, he has his supporters, but I think in the last maybe 48 hours, he's shown some leadership. He has taken an aggressive stance with Iran. And I think a lot of people who are not crazy about Trump are saying today, I've talked to some people today, are thinking that he actually showed some real leadership.
Very nice. And so, I guess providing maybe a little bit more of an update on the geopolitical situation and highlighting the recent developments, what do you think are kind of the global implications that we should be expecting?
Well, I think we're going to have a rough patch. I've thought for all of this year things would be rocky, certainly on trade, and now we see things rocky with geopolitics with Iran, and I see a lot of question marks on the whole issue of interest rates and what the Fed's going to do. So it's a lot of uncertainty, and I'm an admirer of Jerome Powell, and I don't envy him because he's got a tough job trying to figure all of this stuff out.
So, Greg, obviously we've got a couple things we want to kind of talk to you about, take advantage of your insight and expertise. What would you say would be a bit of a review or a summary of Trump's first 5, 6 months into office?
Well, the first few months were incredibly confusing. He would say one thing in the morning, and then he'd say another thing in the afternoon. He especially on trade. There's these trade advisors that he had didn't really know what to say, and it confused the markets. I think there was a stretch March, April, where the markets were really wondering if they were going to have a 4 year nightmare, not knowing what Trump would say. But as I said a few minutes ago, I think Trump has gotten a little bit more stable. I think he knows what he wants to do, and I think that if we can see the economy start to get a little better, I am personally am of the opinion that the second half of the year could be pretty decent.
Okay, yeah. When it comes to his agenda going into the full 4 years, one of the questions that a lot of us hear from clients is he rushing a lot of things through because he thinks he might lose midterm? So is a lot of his agenda going to be fronted to the point that he might not get as much done the last 2 years?
Well, that's possible. And of course, he just had a birthday. He's 79 years old. And I think that he pushes himself really hard for somebody that age. I give him credit for that. So no, I think that in the second half, he has one big goal, and that is to get this big, beautiful bill, typical Trump hyperbole, but big, beautiful bill, a tax bill, spending cuts. And I think the markets have to pay really careful attention to that. It's possible that he may not get the bill before the 4th of July break. It may lag until sometime in August, but I think it'll be a tax cut, and the markets like a tax cut. They like stimulus, and there will be spending cuts. Unfortunately, even though there will be some spending cuts, the U.S. budget deficit continues to be out of control. And that's one of the real negatives in our economy, that we will have a deficit this year, which ends in the end of September, we'll have a deficit of 2 trillion, maybe 1.5, 2 trillion. That's a staggering number. And there's no leadership anywhere in either party to curb spending. It's just totally out of control.
And so based on kind of the spending, obviously one of the big things is the T word, tariffs.
Yeah.
And some of this tariff money was going to be used to help to kind of pay down, I guess, some of this deficit. And so, obviously it's kind of quieted down a little bit here, but as we come on to July 9th, that's kind of the 90 days.
Yep.
What's the current status, and what do you think the future implications of these US tariffs are going to be with regards to, specifically the US, but just global trade dynamics in general?
Well, excuse me for being really cynical on this subject. I think it's a hype. They're not close to a deal. They've had two agreements in principle, one with the UK and the other with China, but so many other countries, including Canada, aren't there yet. And they say, "Oh, we're getting there. We've made some real progress." I'm sorry, I don't think we'll get most of these things done until the winter. Before we, it might even be longer than that. Trump has been very clever with the hyperbole, but he has not really been able to get much done on trade. That could wind up being a real disappointment in the second half.
And so do you think that I guess that, as we say, that the can will just kind of be kicked down the road until the winter, and we shouldn't have to worry too much of it at this point?
Yeah, I think that's right. I definitely think that's right. I mean, there are things that'll keep the economy in good shape, and I tell every investor group I speak to, I do not see a recession. I don't see a roaring economy. I don't see a recession. We'll muddle through on trade. We'll muddle through with a tax bill, and I think that the regulatory policy will be quite and laissez-faire. I think we'll see a very generous regulatory policy, and again, an economy that's okay, but not great.
Do you think we should maybe come to expect that Trump is going to want that 10% baseline through all the deals? So there'll be some adjustments to these agreements, but to some degree, I'm starting to get the feel that for him, being such a tariff guy, that for him, that 10% is going to become that baseline.
Could be, yes. And I should mention the one other really important factor, and that is that I think Trump got the message from the financial markets back in March and April. The market said, wait a second here. I mean, you're not making any sense. This is terrible for the economy. And I think Trump has eased off. He's eased off his criticism of Jerome Powell, and he's eased off his desire for big tariffs. Even with China, he's eased off. So I think he knows that the worst thing he could do would be to antagonize the financial markets.
Speaking of, I guess, tariffs, but more so on Canada-US relationship. So whether it includes tariffs or just the overall relationship, any thoughts on that? Because obviously here in Canada, I think we've taken it quite personal. I'm kind of interested to hear what the perspective in the US has been on this.
Well, I think people who follow this were aghast, very disappointed back in February, March, when fans at hockey games were booing the U.S. national anthem. I mean, it was a really ugly period. And I think that while Trump had very mediocre relations with Trudeau, my sense is that Trump has pretty good relations, at least for now, with Carney. Carney, by the way, gets very high grades in Washington. He's viewed as a very bright guy, a likable guy, and a reasonable guy. So I don't see, a trade being as much of an albatross as it looked 2, 3 months ago. And I thought Carney made a good move about a month and a half ago, maybe a month ago. Carney announced he was going to spend more money on NATO. That was a smart move by him because you had people like Trump saying, no, Canada isn't doing enough. Well, Carney has taken that argument away.
Yeah, that's correct. I believe he's kind of said he's going to accelerate that plan to get to 2% much sooner than what Trudeau had done, correct? Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Do you see, I guess, the possibility of Kuzma, the U.S.-Mexico free trade, getting renegotiated earlier? Do you think that will also get pushed into 26, which is when it was supposed to be under the review initially?
Yeah, I don't see a lot of progress on that, and the fighting in Iran doesn't help. You've got so much instability with the Persian Gulf, and I just don't see a lot of room for an issue that's so complicated. So no, I think that gets pushed into 2026.
And around, I guess, that Canada-US relations, obviously we haven't heard it lately, at least north of the border here, but that 51st state, was obviously something early on that was
Yeah.
happening, and it's kind of quieted off. So, and anything more you're hearing about that, and kind of, yeah, what you're hearing around that.
That has died, mercifully died a pleasant death. I don't think there'll be any more talk about that. Everybody here in Washington thought it was ridiculous. I think I have a lot of friends in Canada who were insulted by this. So that was probably the low point. I think Trump realizes that he's not going to get something like that. Maybe he'll get a little bit of a deal with Greenland. I don't totally rule out the possibility that the U.S. could buy our way to some kind of a deal with Greenland, but any kind of a deal like that with Canada is out of the question.
When it comes to, again, midterms and looking at, the Democratic Party, what can one expect? Is there leadership that is going to come forward to kind of provide that opposing view? And again, are they able to keep Congress in the midterms, or is there a risk to losing it?
I must say, maybe we spend a minute on this. I must say, the Democrats are totally inept. They're feeble. They're dysfunctional. They don't know what they want. People ask me who's the leader of the Democratic Party, and my answer is beats me. I don't know. I have no idea who the party. Maybe Hakeem Jeffries, the head of the chief Democrat in the House. And then people say, well, what's the Democrats' agenda? Again, I say beats me. I think there's been obviously some real animosity over immigration, especially in Los Angeles. But the Democrats really still lack a theme, and it's very frustrating. I know a lot of these people. They're good people, uh, but they can't seem to come up with any kind of traction. That raises a weird issue, and that is, could Trump try to get a third term? It is not allowed in the Constitution, but let's say we get a really good deal in Iran, things start to calm down, and the illegal immigration calms down. I wouldn't be totally shocked if Trump tried to get a constitutional amendment. The odds are slim, but with Trump, you never know.
How,
Go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say, like around the current state of bipartisan cooperation in Congress, what challenges or opportunities do you think that is there anything present there with regards to some opportunities or challenges?
No, I would say that there's no uh, I don't know how to word it, but there's no love between the two parties.
Right.
They don't get along. They are always fighting with each other. I see a lengthy fight during the summer trying to get this big, beautiful tax bill passed. So no, I think that both parties are really, really dislike each other.
Definitely.
When
Thank
when
you.
it comes to the geopolitical side of things, so obviously the things that have gone on recently with Iran, what are your thoughts when it comes to more of that global geopolitical feeling, whether it comes to Iran, Israel, and to some degree, I guess Ukraine is become a bit of a secondary story right now, but where do you think things land when it comes to Ukraine as well, too?
Well, let's start with Ukraine. It's a horrible story, as you all know. The casualties have been staggering. Putin has, in my opinion, shown no real sincere effort to negotiate. I think deep down in, he would love to get his mitts on Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, all of these countries that are in his shadow. So no, I sadly maybe by later in the summer there'll be negotiations, but I'm not optimistic about Ukraine, and the casualties are just staggering. As far as Israel, I think Netanyahu is ecstatic right now, thinking that he has a deal and that we may finally see some kind of an agreement. I mean, the Iranians, I think, still want to stir the pot in the Persian Gulf. They've given tremendous funding to Hezbollah and Hamas and the Houthis. So I don't see things getting a lot better, but I think you've got to conclude that the Iranians got got kicked pretty good in the last week or week and a half. The Israelis own the airspace. The Israelis have had a fabulous run here. And I think that at some point, the Ayatollah, who is 86 years old, may realize that he's going to have to negotiate.
Just as we kind of get close to wrapping up a little bit, obviously there's a lot of noise in front of us that we've seen, tariffs, Ukraine, Iran, all that. Is there anything that we're not seeing that worries you or is top of mind that you're hearing behind the scenes that is coming forward?
Yeah, I mean, you wonder, are there any Iranian agents who are in the U.S. who might try to stir the pot? That's not out of the question. I guess the one thing we didn't talk a lot about, I would just say, Jerome Powell will stay until his term expires in May of next year. And while Powell initially didn't get off to a great start, I think he was too sanguine about inflation. But I think he has a lot of respect right now in both parties. So that is one area where the parties do agree. I think they do feel that Powell is first rate. I think we get 2 rate cuts between now and the end of the year. Maybe one at the end of the summer, 25 basis points, another 25 basis points in December. I think if the economy is looking a little sluggish, that would be great medicine to get the economy off to a good start for fiscal year, the new fiscal year. So I'm a fan of Powell. Trump can blow hot and cold on Powell, but Powell's not going anywhere.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I think the recent talk was, does Jerome Powell stay on as a governor once his term is done? He didn't answer the question, I think, last week when he was asked.
I think he won't. I don't know him well. I've shook hands with him a couple of times, but I have a couple of friends who know him well who say that he'll have his belly full by May. I think by May he will step down as chairman and step down also as governor.
Good. Greg, I appreciate the time that you've given us today. Again, thank you for your insight on what's not only going on in the US, but also just from a more global world perspective. We appreciate it. We commonly get our clients asking us questions of what's going on from the political side of things, and you've been very helpful in helping us share that message. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I enjoyed it. I always enjoy talking to you guys. Have a great summer.
We will.
Thanks, you too, Greg.
Take care. Be well.
All right.
Take
Bye.
care.